In the year 2147, Earth stood at the heart of intergalactic affairs, having transformed into a vibrant nexus of trade, diplomacy, and exploration. The planet's newfound prominence had attracted a myriad of alien species, each contributing its unique culture and technology. Among these visitors, none were more enigmatic or captivating than the Nyari, an all-female race renowned for their stunning beauty, unmatched intelligence, and formidable combat skills. Captain Leon Carter, a seasoned astronaut celebrated for his diplomatic acumen and composed demeanor, had just returned from an arduous mission to Mars. His time at home was fleeting. The United Earth Alliance had already summoned him for an assignment of utmost importance. The Nyari had specifically requested a human liaison for their diplomatic mission, and Leon, with his flawless track record, was the ideal choice. The Nyari ship, a sleek, silver marvel that gleamed like a star caught in the night sky, hovered above Earth's atmosphere, waiting for Leon's arrival. As his shuttle approached, anticipation coursed through him, a blend of excitement at the chance to engage with such a legendary species and an underlying tension born from the unknown. When Leon stepped out of his shuttle, he was met by Commander Alara, the leader of the Nyari delegation. She was a vision, exuding an aura that was as commanding as it was mesmerizing. Her luminous blue skin shimmered softly, as if kissed by moonlight, and her silver eyes sparkled with intelligence. Her hair, a cascade of what seemed like liquid starlight, added an ethereal touch to her already arresting presence. Flanking her were two other warriors, Zara and Ira. Zara's powerful frame and fierce gaze suggested unyielding strength, while Ira moved with an elegance and poise that spoke to her sharp intellect. "Welcome aboard, Captain Carter," Alara greeted him, her voice a harmonious blend of authority and warmth. It resonated in a way that made Leon feel both welcome and scrutinized. "The honor is mine, Commander Alara," Leon replied, offering a respectful nod. "I look forward to fostering a deeper understanding between our peoples." Leon quickly became immersed in the Nyari world. The ship was a technological marvel, its walls adorned with intricate, bioluminescent patterns that shifted in response to touch and presence. The Nyari culture was an intricate weave of art, science, and battle, a harmonious blend that revealed their disciplined and multifaceted nature. Yet, as days passed, Leon began to sense a subtle but persistent tension. Zara, the most formidable of the trio, often challenged Leon in both physical and intellectual contests. Whether it was sparring in the training room or tackling intricate puzzles, her fierce competitiveness was always on display. It seemed as if she needed to assert dominance, to prove herself superior not just as a warrior but as an equal, if not more, to Leon. Ira, on the other hand, engaged Leon in deep conversations, drawing him into philosophical discussions that revealed her sharp mind and eloquence. Her gaze often held a depth that left Leon momentarily speechless, as if she were probing for truths that even he was unaware of. Commander Alara observed these interactions from a distance, her expression an unreadable mixture of curiosity and concern. The underlying cause of the tension became clear one evening when Alara sought Leon out as he gazed at the stars from the observation deck. The silence of space seemed to amplify the gravity of her words. "Captain Carter," Alara began, her voice carrying a note of urgency beneath its usual composed tone, "there is something you must understand about the Nyari. We are currently in a phase known as the Ish Era." Leon turned to her, intrigued but cautious. "Ish Era," he echoed, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. Alara's silver eyes met his, reflecting the starlight with a piercing clarity. "It is a critical period in our cycle. Our instincts during the Ish Era drive us to seek out the most compatible mate, one who embodies both strength and intellect." Realization dawned on Leon, piecing together the subtle clues he had noticed. The competitive fire in Zara's eyes and the depth of Ira's attention suddenly made sense. He had unwittingly become the focal point of their instincts, and the implications were far more complex than he'd anticipated. Leon felt the weight of Alara's revelation settle heavily in his chest. He'd sensed the Nyari's keen interest in him but hadn't grasped the full scope of its meaning until now. The Ish Era was not merely a cultural quirk, it was a force of nature, one that could profoundly influence the interactions among the crew and potentially disrupt their mission. "I didn't realize," Leon admitted, his voice steady but tinged with newfound apprehension. "What can be done to manage this tension?" Alara's expression softened, a hint of empathy seeping through her otherwise stoic demeanor. "I will speak to Zara and Ira. They need to understand that this mission is paramount, and their personal instincts cannot override our objectives. But I must also ask for your patience and understanding, Captain. The Ishera is a powerful force. It is not easily subdued. Leon nodded, his mind already racing through the implications. He knew he had to maintain his composure and continue acting as the bridge between their species, regardless of the personal challenges that lay ahead. The vastness of space, silent and indifferent, stretched before them as Alara departed to speak with her warriors. The next morning, Leon awoke with a sense of trepidation. He understood that Alara's discussion with Zara and Ira could either diffuse or exacerbate the delicate balance within their team. As he made his way to the ship's central hub, the atmosphere felt charged, as if everyone on board was holding their breath. Zara and Ira were waiting for him, their expressions unreadable. The silence between them was almost tangible, a wordless reminder of the tension simmering beneath the surface. Zara was the first to break the silence, her voice steady but taut, carrying an undercurrent of restraint. "Captain," Zara began, her fierce eyes locking onto his, "Commander Alara has explained the situation. We understand the importance of our mission, and we will do our best to maintain focus." Ira nodded, her gaze meeting Leon's with a mix of determination and curiosity. "The Ishera is not a choice, it's a part of who we are. But we are warriors first. We won't let it interfere with our duty." Leon's shoulders relaxed, a wave of relief washing over him. The maturity and dedication in their words reassured him that despite the complications, they were unified in their mission. "Thank you, both of you," he said, sincerity underscoring each word. "Your commitment means more than you know. Let's ensure that this mission succeeds." The team's work resumed with a newfound, albeit fragile, sense of normalcy. Leon and the Nyari warriors embarked on a series of cultural exchanges, sharing knowledge and perspectives that illuminated both the similarities and profound differences between their civilizations. These moments, however, were not without their subtle reminders of the Ishera. Zara's competitive edge was ever present during training sessions, where she tested Leon's mettle with relentless sparring and skillful displays of combat prowess. Each strike she made carried the weight of her heritage and the silent acknowledgement of what was unspoken between them. "Show me what you've got, Captain," Zara would taunt, circling him in the training room, eyes gleaming with a mix of challenge and something deeper. Leon, despite his own impressive skill set, found himself pushed to the limit, aware that every contest was not just training but a layer of the Nyari courtship ritual, an assertion of dominance. In contrast, Ira took a different approach, engaging Leon in intellectual exercises that showcased the breadth of her knowledge. She would guide him to the ship's vast library, where ancient texts and interstellar philosophies were stored. Together, they would debate, question, and share their views on existence, governance, and the nature of consciousness. One evening, as they sat surrounded by holographic depictions of distant galaxies and historical archives, Ira turned to Leon with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to see the universe through someone else's eyes, to share their thoughts and experiences as if they were your own?" Leon considered her question, recognizing it as more than mere curiosity. "I suppose that's what draws me to this work," he said. "It's the drive to bridge those gaps, to understand and connect in ways that defy the limits of our own perspectives." A soft, contemplative smile played on Ira's lips. "The Ishera is more than a drive for physical compatibility, Leon. It's about finding someone who matches you in spirit and mind. That's what I see in you, a potential for something extraordinary." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft chime of an alert, signaling that Commander Alara required their presence in the main conference room. The subtle unspoken tension that followed them was no longer just a background hum, it was becoming an undeniable part of their interactions. Yet, for the mission and the fragile alliance that was forming, they all knew it had to be managed carefully. The alert pulled Leon out of the moment with Ira, replacing the introspective quiet with a sense of urgency. The conference room was alive with the low hum of discussions, bioluminescent symbols on the walls glowing subtly as they picked up on the movement in the room. Commander Alara stood at the head of the table, her expression serious but controlled. Zara was already there, arms crossed, her intense gaze scanning the room, while Ira took a seat beside Leon, her demeanor now focused and alert. "Thank you all for coming," Alara began, her voice calm but underscored with a note of concern. "We've been receiving intelligence that suggests the presence of covert operatives in the area, entities that could pose a threat to our mission." Leon's eyes narrowed. The stakes were already high, and any disruption could unravel the careful work they had put into fostering trust and collaboration. He glanced at Zara and Ira, both of whom were visibly alert, their warrior instincts on edge. "Do we know who these operatives represent?" Leon asked, leaning forward. The room was thick with the anticipation of conflict. Alara nodded slowly. "We suspect that they belong to a syndicate that thrives on destabilizing alliances. Their presence here could be an attempt to derail our progress and test our unity." The tension crackled through the room, the atmosphere heavy with the realization that they were now not just ambassadors but potential targets. Leon knew that any misstep could have severe repercussions, not just for him and the Niari, but for Earth and its tenuous place in this new interstellar order. Zara's eyes blazed, her fierce nature responding to the implied threat. "Let them come," she said, her voice a low growl. "We're not without our defenses." Leon allowed himself a slight smile at Zara's confidence. "It's not just about defending ourselves, Zara. We need to make sure this doesn't escalate into an incident that undermines everything we've worked for." Ira, always the strategic thinker, chimed in. "Perhaps we should leverage this situation to showcase our unity. If we can handle this threat together, it will send a powerful message to those who doubt the strength of our alliance." Alara's eyes met Ira's, a glint of approval sparking in their silver depths. "Agreed. We'll need to be vigilant, but we will proceed as planned with our diplomatic efforts. Captain Carter, your insight will be invaluable as we navigate these waters." Leon nodded, a newfound sense of resolve settling in his chest. "Understood, Commander. We'll face this together." The days that followed were marked by an undercurrent of tension. Leon, Zara, and Ira worked tirelessly to maintain the momentum of their mission while preparing for any signs of sabotage or interference. Training sessions became more intense, both to keep the warriors sharp and to channel the restlessness that pulsed through the team. Zara pushed herself and Leon harder than ever, the training room echoing with the clash of practice weapons and their measured breaths. "Again," Zara said, a bead of sweat tracing down her temple as she adjusted her stance. She was relentless, a tempest of raw power and precision. Leon matched her movements, focusing on keeping up with the controlled ferocity she brought to each session. He knew these exercises were more than physical conditioning. They were an expression of her respect for him as an equal in their unconventional team. Ira's involvement took on a different, quieter intensity. She spent hours with Leon going over potential scenarios and diplomatic strategies, considering how best to approach their next major negotiation. She was meticulous, parsing through various contingencies and ensuring that Leon understood the implications of every choice they might make. One evening, as the three of them gathered for a rare moment of reprieve, Leon spoke up, breaking the silence. "Do you think they're watching us now?" His question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Zara's eyes flickered with defiance. "If they are, let them see that we aren't afraid. We're stronger than any shadow that tries to undermine us." Ira, ever the voice of tempered reason, added, "Strength lies not only in defiance but in unity. If we falter, we do so together, and we rise together as well." Leon took a deep breath, the words resonating within him. This mission, he realized, had become more than just a bridge between Earth and Niari. It was a testament to what could be achieved when disparate forces found a way to harmonize, even under the looming specter of external threats. Their vigilance was soon rewarded, or tested. The ship's sensors picked up an anomaly during one of their voyages, a faint signal that hinted at a cloaked vessel shadowing their path. Alara called for an immediate alert, the entire crew springing into action. The Niari warriors moved with synchronized precision, their training evident in the fluidity of their movements as they prepared for a potential confrontation. Leon's pulse quickened as he took his place on the bridge, Zara and Ira flanking him. The weight of the unknown bore down on them, but in that moment, surrounded by allies who shared his resolve, he knew they would face whatever came next with unwavering strength. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the cloaked vessel's signal persisted on their screens, a silent reminder of the threat lurking just beyond their sight. The bioluminescent panels of the ship cast a soft glow, illuminating the focused faces of the crew as Commander Alara issued directives in a composed, authoritative tone. "Activate our defensive protocols," she commanded. "Prepare for potential engagement, but do not initiate unless provoked." Leon stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the data feeds, aware that one wrong move could trigger a series of events they might not be able to control. Zara, always at the ready, monitored the ship's tactical systems with a steely determination, fingers poised over the controls. "I've got eyes on the energy signature," Zara reported, her voice steady but laced with the thrill of anticipation. "It's not just any ship, it's designed for stealth. We're dealing with professionals." Ira, who had been poring over the communication intercepts, raised her head, her expression thoughtful yet tense. "The Syndicate. It has to be them. Their hallmark is subtlety mixed with precision. If they're here, they're either assessing our strength or preparing to undermine us." Leon exchanged a glance with Ira, the gravity of their situation solidifying the partnership that had been growing between them. He nodded, drawing on the camaraderie that had been forged through trials and shared victories. "We need to show them that we're neither unaware nor unprepared." Suddenly, a subtle vibration ran through the ship, followed by a muted alert that signaled a proximity breach. Alara's gaze sharpened, and the entire crew tensed as a holographic display showed the cloaked vessel materializing, its sleek, angular structure imposing in the darkness of space. "Open a channel," Leon said, his voice carrying an edge of authority. He knew that diplomacy was their first line of defense, even if it was backed by the strength of warriors like Zara and the strategic intellect of Ira. The communication line crackled, and a cold, mechanical voice resonated through the bridge. "Captain Carter of Earth and Commander Alara of the Niari delegation, your pursuit of unity disrupts the balance we have cultivated. Cease your efforts, or face consequences beyond your reckoning." A silence fell over the bridge, thick and oppressive. Zara's jaw clenched, her warrior's instinct urging her to respond with force. Leon, however, raised a hand to stay any hasty action. "Who are you to dictate the fate of our alliances?" he challenged, his tone calm yet firm. "We are the Syndicate," the voice replied, as if the name alone carried the weight of 1,000 hidden motives. "And we guard the equilibrium of power in this galaxy." Ira's eyes met Leon's, a silent exchange of understanding. The Syndicate was not just a name, it was an intricate web of influential players who thrived on the status quo, manipulating events from the shadows to maintain control. Their presence here was a statement, a warning that unity among the species represented a threat to their clandestine power. "Then you already know we won't back down," Leon said, his voice steady. He glanced at Zara and Ira, each ready for whatever was to come. They were not just colleagues. They were a team forged in the crucible of shared goals and silent promises. The Syndicate ship made the first move, sending out a wave of interference that caused the lights in the room to flicker. Alara barked out orders, and the Niari warriors moved as one, their movements a symphony of discipline and readiness. Zara activated the defensive shields, her fingers flying over the controls, while Ira's mind raced through potential countermeasures to maintain their technological edge. "Leon, we need to outthink them," Ira whispered urgently. "A brute force confrontation will only play into their hands." Leon nodded, understanding the stakes. "Can we send out a decoy signal? Make them think we've called for reinforcements?" Ira's eyes lit up with approval. "Yes, but it'll require coordination." Before long, the plan was in motion. While Zara's focus remained on maintaining the ship's defense, Ira worked swiftly to project a false signal, a call for help that suggested a fleet was just moments away. The tension mounted as they waited, the seconds dragging into an eternity. The Syndicate ship paused, its hesitation palpable. The bluff had worked, they had bought themselves time. The enemy ship faded back into its cloaked state, slipping into the void as silently as it had appeared. Alara exhaled slowly, the room finally releasing its collective breath. "They'll be back," she said, eyes meeting Leon's. "But now, they know we're not easily intimidated." Zara's lips curved into a slight smirk, her eyes gleaming with the afterglow of adrenaline. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Leon allowed himself a small nod, a moment of silent gratitude shared with his team. The Syndicate's appearance was a stark reminder of the fragility of their mission and the forces at play. But it was also proof that unity, even when tested, was their greatest strength. As the crew resumed their duties and the ship systems returned to normal, Leon stood at the observation deck once more, gazing out into the starlit abyss. The Syndicate had made its presence known, but so had they. And he knew that with Zara and Ira by his side, whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The encounter with the Syndicate left a lingering tension on the ship. While they had managed to outwit their shadowy adversaries for the moment, the team knew it was only a matter of time before another test came. Leon, Zara, and Ira resumed their diplomatic mission with renewed vigilance, the recent events serving as a stark reminder of the complexities of their task. Days turned into weeks as they navigated their next objectives. The diplomatic delegation made their way to Xylan, a planet renowned for its advanced civilization and technological marvels. The Xyloni were known for their enigmatic ways, preferring seclusion and operating on principles that valued equilibrium above all else. Landing on Xylon was an awe-inspiring experience. The planet's surface was a breathtaking mix of towering, crystalline spires and lush, iridescent landscapes that seemed to hum with energy. As the delegation disembarked, they were greeted by a group of Xyloni council members. The beings were tall and almost translucent, their skin appearing to shimmer as though embedded with stars. Their eyes, deep and unfathomable, gave off an impression of seeing far beyond the immediate present, capturing histories and possibilities all at once. The lead counselor, Eldar Jan, stepped forward. His gaze swept over Leon and the Niari warriors with a calculating look. "Welcome to Xylon," he said, his voice melodic but with an undertone of caution. "We have heard much about your mission of unity. It is bold." Leon inclined his head respectfully. "We come seeking dialogue and understanding, Eldar January. The strength of unity lies not in the erasure of identity but in the celebration of it." Eldar Jan's expression shifted slightly, as if the sentiment resonated, yet he remained guarded. "Understand that many among our council view change as disruption. Proving otherwise will require more than words." Zara, who had been standing with a warrior's stoic demeanor, took a step forward, her eyes meeting Jan's without flinching. "We are prepared to show our commitment through action," she stated firmly. The next few days were a whirlwind of formal meetings, cultural exchanges, and demonstrations of technological prowess. Leon presented Earth's advancements, while Zara and Ira offered insights into Niari combat and governance philosophies. The Xyloni watched with an air of quiet skepticism, their reactions measured and deliberate. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. Subtle glances and whispered conversations among the Xyloni suggested that not all were in favor of an alliance. The council appeared divided, with Eldar Jan positioned in the delicate balance between factions pushing for collaboration and those resisting any alteration to their insular way of life. Late one evening, Leon, Zara, and Ira gathered in their temporary quarters within the towering crystalline structure that housed the council. The chamber, bathed in the soft blue glow of bioluminescent walls, felt both serene and charged with the weight of unspoken concerns. "Something's off," Zara muttered, pacing the room with a restless energy. "The council isn't fully on board." "I can feel it." Ira, seated with a holographic display of their upcoming presentation flickering before her, nodded. "There's a faction within the council that's resistant to the idea of outside influence. They see us as disruptors, even threats." Leon crossed his arms, contemplating their next move. "We need to reach them, not just with words but by showing that we understand the value of their traditions and can enhance them without overshadowing them." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime. A Xyloni messenger, their translucent form casting ethereal patterns across the chamber, entered with an invitation. Eldar Jan wished to meet them privately. The trio exchanged a glance, understanding that this meeting could be pivotal. Jan's private chambers were a reflection of Xylon's duality, elegant and minimalist yet filled with projections of ancient history and complex symbols that pulsed with subtle light. He regarded the team with a measured expression, a quiet intensity in his gaze. "Thank you for accepting this meeting," Leon began, breaking the silence with a respectful nod. "We are aware that our presence has stirred debates within your council." Eldar Jan's lips curved in the slightest of smiles. "Debates would be a modest term, Captain. You represent change, and change to many is synonymous with upheaval. Our society has thrived on balance for millennia. What assurance can you offer that your unity will not unravel the fabric of our ways?" Ira stepped forward, her voice calm and resolute. "Eldar Jan, true unity is not assimilation. It's partnership. Your culture, your values, they are what make Xylon unique. We do not seek to dilute that but to learn from it, to create a network of shared knowledge and prosperity." Jan's eyes softened for a brief moment, reflecting stars that seemed to shift and swirl within them. "Your words carry weight, Ira of the Niari. I will bring this assurance to the council. But know this, our trust is a delicate thing, earned only through proof." As they left Jan's chambers, Leon felt a flicker of hope. They had taken a step, however small, towards understanding. Yet he knew that proving their intentions would be far from simple. And somewhere in the recesses of his mind, He could not shake the thought of the Syndicate and the silent threat they posed to this fragile, burgeoning alliance. The following day brought a renewed sense of purpose to Leon, Zara, and Ira as they prepared to engage more deeply with the Xyloni. The planet's crystalline cities glistened under the twin suns, casting rainbow-hued reflections that danced across the landscape. It was a reminder of both the beauty and fragility of their mission. Their actions here would determine whether they could solidify an alliance or watch their efforts fracture under the weight of doubt and resistance. Leon, Zara, and Ira joined a scheduled cultural exchange event that showcased Earth's technological advancements alongside the Niari's intricate art forms and combat techniques. The Grand Hall was filled with delegates from various factions of the Xyloni Council, their expressions a mix of cautious interest and guarded skepticism. Zara took center stage, demonstrating the Niari's legendary combat prowess. Her movements were a blur of precision and power, each strike and parry echoing with the history of a warrior race. She finished her demonstration with a flourish, eyes scanning the room for any sign of approval or disdain. The crowd murmured, some nodding with newfound respect, while others whispered among themselves, expressions unreadable. Ira followed with a display of Niari philosophy, discussing their views on governance, justice, and unity. Her eloquence and insight drew a few nods from more scholarly members of the council, but the guarded expressions of others reminded Leon that there was still much work to be done. After the presentations, Eldar Jan stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. Your presentations were informative and well executed. Yet, demonstrations alone do not build trust, he said, his voice carrying the weight of both praise and caution. To truly understand one another, we must face challenges together. Leon sensed that this was more than a statement, it was a proposition. What kind of challenge do you propose, Eldar Jan? He asked, meeting the councillor's star-filled eyes. Jan's gaze shifted to the delegates, who whispered among themselves before he replied. There is a region on Xylan that has been untouched by diplomacy or unity, a place where our past mistakes linger. We call it the Shard Vale. If you truly wish to prove your commitment, join us there and show that your unity can withstand not just words and presentations, but real trials. The hall fell silent as the challenge hung in the air, the weight of it pressing down on the team. The Shard Vale was known as a place of ancient conflict, where the remnants of a civil war that nearly tore Xylan apart still cast long, painful shadows. Zara's eyes gleamed with determination, her warrior spirit undeterred. We accept, she said firmly, her voice cutting through the silence. Leon and Ira exchanged a glance, their mutual understanding crystallizing in that moment. This was not just a test of strength, but of unity, resilience, and resolve. The next day, the team set out for the Shard Vale, accompanied by Eldar Jan and a contingent of Xyloni observers. The journey took them deep into the heart of Xylan's more rugged landscapes, where the polished spires gave way to jagged, crystalline outcroppings that jutted into the sky like the fingers of a long-forgotten giant. The air was thick with an almost tangible tension, as if the land itself remembered the battles that had scarred it. As they reached the vale, the temperature seemed to drop, and the colors that characterized Xylan dulled to somber shades. The terrain was treacherous, shards of crystal underfoot shifting and cracking with each step. The silence was profound, interrupted only by the occasional sigh of the wind, which whispered secrets of old battles lost and won. Eldar Jan raised a hand, signaling for the group to halt. This is where we prove whether your unity is a veneer or a foundation, he said. Here, the energy of the past echoes strongest. To pass this test, you must work together to navigate the challenges that lie ahead. The first challenge emerged almost immediately. A tremor rippled through the ground, causing crystalline pillars to shudder and crack. Before they could react, a section of the path collapsed, sending debris cascading down into a chasm below. Zara leapt into action, her reflexes swift as she reached out to steady Leon, who had stumbled. "Stay close," Zara shouted, her tone a mix of command and concern. Ira, eyes darting across the unstable landscape, spotted the safest path forward. "There's a way across, but we need to move together, step by step. If we rush, we risk more collapses." The team advanced carefully, each step a testament to their unity and trust in one another. The Xyloni observers watched, their expressions unreadable but attentive. Every slip, every shift of crystal beneath their feet was a reminder that this was more than a trial of navigation, it was a test of their bond. Halfway across the veil, another tremor surged, and a shard dislodged above them. Without hesitation, Leon shouted, "Zara, above you!" The warrior pivoted, catching sight of the falling crystal just in time to shove Ira aside, saving her from harm but taking the brunt of the impact on her arm. She winced but steadied herself, refusing to let weakness show. "Thank you," Ira whispered, her gratitude palpable. Zara only nodded, the pain flickering in her eyes for a moment before she resumed her vigilant watch. Leon's respect for both women deepened. This was not just a mission, it was a crucible where loyalty, strength, and intellect melded into something more profound. As they pressed on, Leon knew that their success here would resonate far beyond the Veil. It would be a signal to the Xyloni and to the galaxy that unity was not an abstract ideal, but a force as tangible and resilient as the warriors who embodied it. The Shard Veil continued to test the team's resolve. Each step was a dance with danger, the crystalline ground prone to sudden shifts and splintering that threatened to send them tumbling into jagged chasms below. The air itself seemed charged with an ancient energy, resonating with the memories of conflicts that had once splintered Xylan's unity. Eldar Jan and the Xyloni observers trailed behind, watching silently, their expressions a blend of curiosity and silent judgment. As the team navigated a narrow ridge, a low rumble signaled yet another test. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the veil, sending loose shards of crystal spinning like deadly shrapnel. Instinct took over as Leon dropped low to shield himself, but before he could react further, Zara was already moving. With the precision of a seasoned warrior, she pivoted, raising her arm to deflect the sharper projectiles with a piece of reinforced gear, while maintaining her balance on the unsteady ground. "Keep moving!" Zara shouted, her voice carrying over the howling wind. Ira's gaze darted to the ridge ahead, analyzing the shifting terrain. "We need to reach that outcrop. It's more stable," she called, pointing to a jagged, protruding platform that promised temporary refuge. Leon led the way, carefully but swiftly stepping across the cracking surface. The wind subsided just enough to allow them to reach the outcrop, where they gathered, breathing heavily but unharmed. The silence that followed felt profound, as if the veil itself were pausing to judge their progress. Eldar Jan approached, his star-filled eyes reflecting the crystalline chaos around them. "Impressive," he said, his tone neutral but laced with an undercurrent of intrigue. "Few have crossed this far into the veil unscathed." Leon exchanged a glance with Zara and Ira, recognizing that this was more than praise. It was acknowledgement that they had begun to prove themselves. But the hardest part was yet to come. The final test of the Shard Veil was not one of physical endurance but of unity under pressure. The path ahead led into a cavernous space, where the crystals shifted in color and emitted a low, almost melodic hum. It was disorienting, and the further they ventured, the more intense the sound became, vibrating through their very bones. Suddenly, images flickered in the crystalline walls around them, echoes of memories, battles long past, and visions that tapped into their subconscious fears. Leon saw Earth engulfed in flames, cities crumbling under unknown forces. For a moment, he felt the helplessness that had driven him to become a diplomat and bridge the gaps between worlds. He clenched his fists, grounding himself in the reality of the moment. Zara's eyes widened briefly as the image of a fallen Niari warrior, a figure she recognized from her training days, appeared before her. The sight triggered the memories of past failures, moments when her strength hadn't been enough. She took a deep breath, pushing aside the ghosts that sought to weaken her resolve. Ira, too, faced her fears. The crystalline projections showed visions of disarray, Niari society fracturing under pressures they hadn't foreseen, their intellectual superiority rendered powerless by conflict. But instead of succumbing to the anxiety that welled up within her, Ira turned to Leon and Zara. "We need to focus on the present. These are tests, projections designed to challenge us, to break our unity," Ira said, her voice clear and steady despite the cacophony around them. Leon nodded, the images around him shifting and blurring as he centered himself. "Together," he said, his voice resolute. "We face this together." Zara's fierce eyes met his, and she inclined her head in agreement. "Always," she whispered, her usual bravado tempered by the solemnity of the moment. The hum intensified, as if resisting their unity, but then, in a synchronized act of defiance, the three stood side by side, unyielding. The cavern's crystalline walls seemed to pulse one final time before the projections faded, leaving behind only the ambient glow of the crystals. Eldar Jan, who had watched from a distance, stepped forward, his expression no longer guarded. The flicker of a smile crossed his lips, a rare and significant gesture. "You have passed the true test of the Shard Veil." You showed that unity is not just a word, but a force capable of weathering both external and internal storms. Leon exhaled, relief mingled with a sense of pride. He looked at Zara and Ira, who both returned his gaze with mutual respect. They had faced their deepest fears and emerged stronger, bound not just by their mission but by an unspoken bond forged in adversity. The Xyloni council members who had observed the trial murmured among themselves, their once skeptical eyes now filled with something that could only be described as hope. Eldar Jan's voice rose above the quiet conversations. We will bring this experience to the council. The path forward is clearer now, thanks to your resolve. As the team made their way back to the crystalline city, the sun dipping below the horizon and casting long, prismatic shadows across the land, Leon knew that they had taken a significant step forward. The Shard Veil had tested them in every way possible, and they had answered with unity, strength, and resilience. But even as they relished this victory, the memory of the Syndicate and their veiled threats loomed like a distant storm. They would need this bond they had forged in the trials ahead, for the true challenges were yet to come. The sun set behind the crystalline spires of Xylan, casting hues of gold and violet across the cityscape. Leon, Zara, and Ira returned to their quarters with a shared sense of accomplishment, but also an unspoken acknowledgement that the respite would be brief. The trials of the Shard Veil had solidified their unity and earned them a measure of trust, but the specter of the Syndicate still cast a long shadow over their mission. Word of their success spread quickly. The council convened the next morning in a chamber filled with bioluminescent symbols that pulsed gently, reflecting the collective energy and anticipation of the delegates present. Eldar Jan took his place at the center, his star-filled eyes sweeping across the room before resting on Leon and the Niari warriors. The delegation from Earth and the Niari have shown resilience, unity, and integrity under the most trying circumstances, Jan declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. The council has deliberated, and we are prepared to move forward with an alliance. A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber, and for the first time since their arrival, Leon saw genuine smiles and nods of affirmation from even the most skeptical council members. Relief washed over him, but it was tempered by the awareness that alliances forged in trials could be fragile, easily threatened by those who thrived on discord. After the session, Leon, Zara, and Ira gathered in a quiet alcove, the bioluminescence casting their faces in a soft, blue glow. Zara, always the embodiment of strength, allowed herself a rare smile. "We did it," she said, a hint of pride warming her voice. Ira nodded, her usually composed expression softening. "This is just the beginning, though. The Syndicate will not sit idle while we expand our alliances. They will strike when we least expect it." Leon's gaze shifted, eyes narrowing as he considered the implications. "We need to anticipate their next move and strengthen our connections not just here, but with other allies who can stand with us when the time comes." Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Eldar Jan, who moved with the silent grace characteristic of the Xyloni. "Captain Carter, warriors Zara and Ira," he began, inclining his head slightly. "The Council recognizes the risks you face. We wish to support your mission by sharing intelligence we have on the Syndicate. They are more entrenched than you might think, with ties that reach far into systems believed to be neutral." Leon's eyes sharpened. "Any information you have would be invaluable, Eldar January. We're prepared to face what's ahead, but knowledge is our greatest asset." Jan nodded, his expression solemn. "Come to our intelligence archives tomorrow. What you learn there may change the way you see not only your enemies but the alliances you seek to forge." The next day, the trio made their way to the intelligence archives, a labyrinthine space filled with holographic records and encrypted data. The Xyloni intelligence officer, a figure whose translucent skin seemed to shimmer more intensely in the dim light, guided them to a projection that displayed the known movements of the Syndicate. Red lines crisscrossed the holographic map, each one representing an operation, a coup, or a subtle manipulation that had shaped the course of countless worlds. "The Syndicate thrives in the spaces between alliances," the officer explained. "They leverage conflict, distrust, and chaos to maintain their influence. Their power is not in their numbers, but in their reach and the precision of their strikes." Zara's fists clenched as she took in the web of influence. "They've already tried to disrupt our mission once. They'll come at us again, but this time, we'll be ready." Ira's mind raced, piecing together how they could use this new intelligence to bolster their strategy. "If we can predict their next move, we can not only defend against it, but turn it into an opportunity to expose them." Leon nodded, the pieces falling into place in his mind. The Syndicate's tactics relied on secrecy and division. If they could shine a light on those tactics, they could weaken the shadowy organization's hold over the galaxy. We need to coordinate with our allies and share this intelligence, not just as a warning but as a rallying call. If the Syndicate sees that their reach is no longer hidden, they'll be forced to adapt, and that's when we strike. The briefing concluded, and the team left the archives with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that their mission had evolved from diplomacy to active resistance against forces intent on stifling unity. As they prepared to depart Xylon, Leon stood with Zara and Ira on the observation deck, looking out at the shimmering expanse of space. "This is just the beginning," Leon said, the stars reflected in his eyes. "We've proven we can stand together, but now we need to show the galaxy that unity isn't just possible, it's inevitable." Zara's gaze was fierce, tempered by determination. "Let them come. We've faced worse, and we've come out stronger every time." Ira's voice was quieter, but no less resolute. "Unity is our greatest strength, and the Syndicate's greatest fear. They won't stop until they've tested every limit we have." Leon placed a hand on each of their shoulders, the bond between them as strong as the metal and starlight surrounding them. "Then we show them we have no limits." The Niari ship set its course for new horizons, each pulse of its engines a heartbeat echoing the unity forged among them. The Syndicate would come, but they would be ready, together. The stars that once seemed distant were now a shared horizon, a symbol of their unyielding resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead, side by side. And so, under the vast canvas of the cosmos, they moved forward, driven by the promise of a galaxy bound not by fear or isolation, but by unity and hope.